Hello and welcome. My name is Allison Dawson and I am the Student Development Specialist, English and Writing Tutor for ECTC's TRIO Student Support Services Program, and I hope that you all are doing well. Today I will be giving a brief virtual presentation titled Quick Tips Becoming an Active Reader. As college students and even throughout our daily routines, our brains process an abundance of information, and it's really simple to skim through something we read throughout the day and forget it soon after. This presentation will provide you with some items to consider and implement to ensure that you are actively engaged while you're reading and processing information for comprehension purposes. It is my hope that you walk away from this presentation with knowledge of several techniques that will allow you to grow as an active reader. And it is my hope that you take these and apply these when you are reading to comprehend information, whether that be in a college course or in the workplace. Let's begin today by going over a couple of quick initial items to kind of get us started. So first, I want to talk about what it means to be an active reader. So active readers are defined as individuals who read with the intent to fully comprehend information. And they do this by remaining engaged from the point they start reading to the time that they finish. And this is really important. Active reading strategies allow us to really focus in on what we're reading and to find purpose and value in the material, to comprehend the material we're reading, all of those main points and supporting details, and to establish connections with the material to find it relatable in some capacity. All of these skills allow us to more simply understand tasks, assignments, or instructions in a more complete way, at the simplest value, but also taking that a step further and being able to understand information well enough to teach it to someone else. This is a great example of this is in the workplace when we have to explain information to a customer or to a client. And so seeing this at its full value really helps us understand the importance of active reading as a whole. And so let's begin next by talking about some steps we can take prior to reading to make sure that we're ready to be engaged and to actively read the material that we're about to read. So let's begin with an open mind as we go to read. So that means removing any mental blocks meaning that we're trapped in our thoughts due to internal barriers such as overwhelming emotions, whether that be worries, fears, or any other kind. And external barriers, those could be personal concerns or work-related concerns, anything else that we've got going on. We want to kind of set that to the side, any other distractions that we have. Or we could have some predispositions about the text, meaning that we've looked at the text and decided whether it's going to be a good piece of reading material or not. And so we want to remove all that and really take in the information that we're going to read. Beginning open-mindedly will also allow us to see any bias in the material as we're reading through. This is really helpful when we're picking out good sources for research, so keep that in mind in that capacity as well. Secondly, I want to point out the importance of understanding the context, the origin of our information, the background information, where it came from. This will not only point out and help us to see the value in what we're reading, but also satisfy our need to understand those 5 W's: who, what, where, when, and why. And third, it's important to understand how the writing is organized. Take note of all of the headings or subheadings when initially viewing a text or a piece of reading material. It's valuable to understand where we're going as we're reading. And also, after we've read, to be able to go back and locate specific portions of information. This is also really helpful when researching, so keep that in mind there as well. The next bit of information we're going to go over are some strategies and steps to take while reading to ensure that we are being active readers. And so the first thing I want to point out here is the importance of reading out loud. Although it might be uncomfortable, read the material out loud 5 times or more. This really helps, again, with understanding what we're reading in its entirety, understanding the author's diction, why they're choosing the words that they are to back up their main points and to support their writing. Making connections with what we're reading, finding it relatable in some capacity. And this also increases a reader's attentiveness, sensitivity to the information that they're reading, really focusing in on those bits of information. And this really also accommodates visual and auditory learning styles as we are not only seeing the information, but we're hearing it as we're reading it. And so that really helps out with that content comprehension. Second, it's important to understand that we can break it down as we go. This is acceptable and encouraged. Look for those subheadings. Focus on one section or paragraph at a time. And when you're doing this, again, read the material out loud. If your text is written in a chronological fashion, it's also important to remember that. If that's the case, understand one section or one paragraph before moving on to the next. And the next point I'm going to make here is to annotate. It's important to take notes as we're reading. Perhaps we found a word or phrase that we didn't understand and we need to look it up or ask somebody to clarify it later. Annotate that. Take note of that. If you made a connection while you're reading, annotate that. Maybe you located the thesis statement, main points, or supporting details of a text, and maybe you're going to be required to write a summary about that later. Annotate all of those things. Annotating or taking notes can be as simple as highlighting or underlining material. It doesn't take very long to jot something down. Take note of that. And the next portion we're going to cover are some strategies and steps to take after reading to really hit it home and make sure that we have understood all of that material. And so the first thing I want to mention here is to review. Review the text, review those notes multiple times to ensure content comprehension, to make sure that you really understood everything. And if you didn't, then go back again and ask those questions and make sure that you really understand everything through and through. This step is really important if you're comprehending information for a long-term purpose. Maybe you're writing a research paper for English 101 or 102. Understanding all of that is very important in that case to back up your main points and to find sources to employ effectively. Or perhaps you are comprehending information for real-world application. Maybe it's something you have to know for long-term for your career so that you can explain it to someone else or work with a team and talk back and forth about that material. Make sure you understand it in that sense as well. Remember, the end goal for active readers is to accomplish an understanding of the material, the reading material in its entirety. Second, it's important to always test your knowledge. There are two great ways that I'm going to recommend you do that. First, write a summary. Summaries do not have to be long. They're about 20% in length when compared to that of the original source. All they require you to do is state that main purpose of the original text, highlight all the main points included, and only mention the type of support utilized in the work. Don't go into any detail. Summaries are always written entirely in your own words, and that's the test of it. And if that should prove to be simple with a successful outcome, your understanding of the material has been accomplished based on those active reading strategies, and that's how you know that that works for you. You could also test your knowledge through verbal discussion. Essentially, this is the same as far as the components that would need to be included. As far as comparing that to a summary, the only difference between the verbal discussion and the summary is that the verbal discussion is out loud rather than being written. And so if you're able to highlight again that purpose, the main points, all of that stuff, and really understand it in its entirety, and this should prove to be simple with a successful outcome, then you know that your understanding of the material has been accomplished based on the active reading strategies you use. And so two great ways there, and it's important to test your knowledge in whichever way you're comfortable. As we conclude today, if you have any further questions on active reading strategies, always feel free to contact me. My name, email, phone number, and availability are listed on this slide. I thank you so much for tuning in today, and I hope that you have a blessed day.